Hey everybody, welcome back to Mimi's Mixed Bag. Today I'm coming to you with a gift suggestion. You know, we are in November now and we are starting the gift buying season. Some of us have little ones to buy for, and I know I certainly do. And a lot of us do the 4-gift rule. If you don't know what that is something they want, something they need, something to wear, and something to read. I love this idea because not only does it control my spending, but it also gives them a little bit of everything that I want to give them. But I do have a suggestion for the reading part. And I was up in my attic the other day and I came across my very favorite children's book. This is a book that I read every first day of school. It has a wonderful takeaway message at the end, and it's just one of those books that you want to kind of save as a keepsake and share it with children, grandchildren, or even any children that visit your home. Let me go ahead and show it to you. I'm going to take the dust cover off because it is the same on the hardcover. This book does come in soft cover and hardback, and it is called Mr. Peabody's Apples, if you've never heard of it. It is illustrated by Loren, and it was recreated. It was not originated, but it was recreated by Madonna in the early 2000s. And it is the Madonna that's the pop singer. You know, she is quite controversial, but regardless of all that, this is a wonderful story. She says in the inside that the story actually came from one of her Kabbalah teachers. And Kabbalah is a religion that she was into. And regardless of what religion you're in, the takeaway message to this book is wonderful for your children. And I thought I would do is I'd set the camera up and I will read you this book just so that you can see. It takes about 10 to 12 minutes to read the book, and I won't make you stay if you don't want to, but I just want to show you some of the illustrations. They are so adorable, and it kind of reminds me of the Andy Griffith era, kind of like Mayberry. It's just a super cute book. So if you're looking for something for your child to read or for you to keep as a keepsake book, this is definitely a great one. Mr. Peabody's Apples. It's no longer in print. You can still find it on Amazon and eBay for less than $5. I found many of them. I just wanted to show you what the front and the back look like. And so now I'm going to set the camera up and read you the story. After that, leave me a comment below of what you think about it or what message you got from it, because I won't elaborate after the story, but I would be curious to see what you think about it. So thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Mr. Peabody's Apples by Madonna and Loren Long. In the town of Happyville, which isn't a very big town, Mr. Peabody was congratulating his Little League team on a great game. They had not won, but no one really cared because they had such a good time playing. Mr. Peabody was a history teacher at the local elementary school, and in the summertime he dedicated every Saturday to organizing baseball games with the other schools. Billy Littrell, who was not a very big boy, was one of Mr. Peabody's students. He loved baseball more than anything, and he thought Mr. Peabody was the greatest. After each game, he would always stay and help pick up the bats and the balls, and when they were finished, Mr. Peabody would smile and say, "Thanks, Billy. Great, good job. I'll see you next Saturday." Then he would start his walk home along the main street of Happyville, which isn't a very big street, waving hello to everyone who knew, and everyone would wave hello back. Along the way, he always passed Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market. Here Mr. Peabody would stop and admire Mr. Funkadeli's fresh apples. He would pick out the shiniest apple, drop it in his bag, and continue on his way. Across the street, Tommy Tittlebottom watched with curiosity as Mr. Peabody walked away with the apple. "That's strange," Tommy said to himself. "Mr. Peabody didn't pay for the apple." Tommy got on his skateboard and rushed to tell his friends. The following Saturday, Mr. Peabody's team played another game. They lost, as usual, but no one seemed to care because they had such a good time playing. Billy picked up the balls and bats, and Mr. Peabody set off on his walk home. He waved to everyone he knew, and they waved back. Once again, he stopped at Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market, picked up the shiniest apple, dropped into his bag, and continued on his way. Across the street, Tommy Tittlebottom and his friends watched Mr. Peabody as they were amazed at what they saw. Mr. Peabody had not paid for his apple. They could not wait to go tell their friends, who told their parents, who told their neighbors, who told their friends in the town of Happyville, which isn't a very big town. The Saturday after that, Mr. Peabody was standing all alone on the baseball field, wondering where everybody was. Then he saw Billy walking toward him with a sad look on his face. "Hello, Billy. I'm glad you're here, but where is the rest of the team?" asked Mr. Peabody. Billy remained silent. "What is it, Billy?" he asked again. Billy didn't look up. "Everyone thinks you're a thief," he said to the ground. Mr. Peabody looked confused. He took off his hat and scratched his head. "Who says I'm a thief, Billy? And why did I steal? And what did I steal?" he asked. "Tommy Tittlebob and his friends said they saw you take an apple from Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market twice, and that you didn't pay for them," answered Billy. "Ah," said Mr. Peabody, putting his hat back on his head. "Let's go talk to Mr. Funkadeli about it, shall we?" They walked down the main street, which isn't a very big street. Mr. Peabody waved to all the people he knew, and now some of them did not wave back, and some pretended they didn't even see him. They finally arrived at Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market. Out popped Mr. Funkadeli, who said, "Hey, what are you doing here, Mr. Peabody? Why aren't you at the game?" "There wasn't a game today," Mr. Peabody said, "and I was wondering if I could take my apple earlier than usual." "Sure, why not?" replied Mr. Funkadeli. "You pay for them every Saturday morning, and when you pick up your milk, you can take them when you like. You want the big shiny one, Mr. Peabody?" Mr. Peabody took his apple, smiled, and offered it to Billy. "I would like to take the apple, Mr. Peabody, but I have to go find Tommy and explain everything," said Billy. "When you find him, ask him to come over to my house, and I would like to speak to him too," replied Mr. Peabody. A little later, Billy found Tommy and told him what had happened with the apples. He told Tommy that Mr. Peabody wanted to speak to him right away. So Tommy ran, and when he arrived, he rang the doorbell, and Mr. Peabody came to the door, and they looked at each other for a while. "Oh dear, Mr. Peabody," said Tommy on the doorstep. "I didn't understand. I should not have said what I said, but it looked like you hadn't paid for the apples." Mr. Peabody's eyebrows went up a little, and he felt a little warm breeze blow across his face. "It doesn't matter what it looked like. What matters is the truth." Tommy looked down at his shoes and said, "I am so sorry. What can I do to make things better?" Mr. Peabody took a deep breath, looked up at the small cloud in the sky, and said, "I tell you what, Tommy, meet me at the baseball diamond in an hour, and bring a pillow stuffed with feathers." "Okay," said Tommy, who ran off to his house to get a pillow. An hour later, Tommy met Mr. Peabody on the pitcher's mound. "Hello, Tommy," said Mr. Peabody. "Follow me and bring your pillow." Tommy followed Mr. Peabody to the top of the bleachers, wondering what this was all about. "It's a windy day, isn't it?" asked Mr. Peabody when he reached to the top. Tommy nodded his head in agreement. "Here's a pair of scissors. Now cut the pillow in half and shake the feathers out." Tommy looked confused, but he did it anyway. He thought it was a small price to pay to gain Mr. Peabody's forgiveness. The wind carried the thousands of feathers far and wide. Tommy looked relieved and said, "Is that all I have to do to make things better?" "There's one more thing," said Mr. Peabody. "Now you must go and pick up all the feathers." Tommy frowned. "I don't think that's possible to pick up all the feathers," Tommy replied. "It would be just as impossible to undo the damage that you have done by spreading the rumor that I'm a thief," said Mr. Peabody. "Each feather represents a person in Happyville." There was a long pause as Tommy began to understand what Mr. Peabody was saying. Finally he said, "I guess I've got a lot of work ahead of me." Mr. Peabody smiled and said, "Indeed you do. Next time don't be so quick to judge a person, and remember the power of your words." And then he handed Tommy the shiny red apple and made his way home. The end. And there is Tommy's pillow stitched back up. So let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. Thanks for staying and listening. Bye-bye.